If you've ever gone camping and had that one night where everything felt just slightly wrong, you need to hear this, because what happened to me and my brother still doesn't have an explanation, and honestly, I'm not sure I want one. My brother Dale and I had been planning this trip for months. We picked a spot in the Ozark National Forest, off a trail that wasn't exactly marked on any map you'd find at a gas station. Dale liked it that way. Less people, more peace. I liked it because Dale was paying for gas. We got to the site around 4 in the afternoon, plenty of daylight left. Set up the tent, gathered wood, the usual routine. The air smelled like pine and dirt, that clean kind of cold you only get deep in the woods. Nothing about it felt off, not yet. Dinner was canned chili heated over the fire, nothing fancy. We talked about work, about nothing, the kind of conversation you have when you're comfortable and tired and the fire's doing its job. Around 9, we heard a truck. Not close but not far either. An engine, definitely a diesel, working its way up some logging road nearby. We didn't think much of it. People use those roads. Hunters, forestry workers, whoever. Except the truck didn't pass through. It stopped. We couldn't see it. The trees were too thick and it was dark enough now that even the fire only lit up maybe 15 feet around us. But we could hear the engine idling, just sitting there, running. Dale made a joke about it being a ranger checking on campsites. I laughed along, but something about it didn't sit right with me. Rangers don't usually park and just leave the engine running for 20 minutes. And that's how long it went on. 20, maybe 25 minutes of that engine just idling somewhere in the dark, close enough to hear but far enough we couldn't see a single headlight through the trees. Then it stopped, the engine cut off entirely. That silence was worse than the noise. At least with the engine running, we knew where the sound was coming from and that it wasn't moving. Now there was nothing, and nothing means anything could be happening and you wouldn't know it. We sat there for a while, not really talking, just kind of listening. Dale threw another log on the fire, and the pop and crack of it made both of us jump a little, which we both laughed off. But it was the kind of laugh that doesn't really mean anything's funny. Around 11, we decided to turn in. Zipped up the tent, got into our sleeping bags. I remember lying there thinking about that truck, wondering if maybe it was somebody who broke down, or somebody just parked to smoke a cigarette in peace. Normal explanations. I wanted a normal explanation. I must have drifted off at some point, because I woke up to Dale gripping my arm. Hard, like he was trying to keep himself from making noise by holding onto something. He didn't say anything at first, just pointed toward the front of the tent, toward the mesh window we'd left uncovered so we could see the stars. There was a light out there, not a flashlight beam moving around, just a light, steady, maybe 50 yards off, low to the ground like it was sitting on the hood of a vehicle. And it wasn't moving. We didn't move either. I don't know how long we stayed like that, frozen, just watching that light through the mesh, waiting for it to do something, go somewhere, anything. Then the light clicked off. Dale leaned in close and whispered that we needed to get to the car. Our car was parked at the trailhead, about a quarter mile down a path we knew by heart in daylight but had never walked in pitch dark. We grabbed nothing but our boots and the keys, left the tent, left the gear, left all of it. Walking that path in the dark was the longest quarter mile of my life. Every root looked like a hand. Every gap in the trees looked like it was hiding something standing dead still. We didn't use a flashlight. We didn't want to be seen moving. About halfway down, we heard the truck engine start up again. Somewhere behind us, off to the side, hard to place exactly where. It didn't sound like it was chasing us. It sounded like it was pulling away, tires crunching over gravel and brush, fading out toward whatever road had brought it there in the first place. We got to the car, and Dale didn't even wait for me to get my door shut all the way before he had it in reverse. We drove straight through the night to the nearest town, sat in a diner parking lot until it opened at 6, and didn't say much of anything to each other the whole time. We never went back for the gear. Tent, sleeping bags, cooler, all of it, we just left it out there. A few weeks later, Dale looked into it, because that's the kind of person he is. He needs an answer even when there isn't a good one. Turns out that section of forest had a history of illegal dumping, and some other activity rangers had been trying to crack down on for years. People using those logging roads at night for things that had nothing to do with camping or hunting. Nobody could tell him anything specific about that night, about a truck, about a light in the trees, just that it wasn't the first time someone had reported something like it. I don't know who was out there or what they wanted. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was someone just as spooked by two guys camping alone as we were by them. But I think about that idling engine more than I'd like to admit. The way it just sat there, running like it was deciding something. We still camp. Dale says you can't let one bad night take something you love. But we don't go anywhere without cell signal anymore, and we don't camp alone. And if a truck ever stops near our site again, we're not waiting around to find out why. I bought a satellite messenger for $40 a month specifically, so my wife would stop worrying every time I went camping alone. 3 weeks ago, I used it to send the last message I ever sent from those woods, and I still don't know if I did the right thing by staying quiet about what I saw. I want to start by saying I've been camping alone for almost 15 years. I'm not some guy who wandered into the wilderness with a tent from Walmart and no idea what he was doing. I know how to read a topo map. I know how to purify water. I know the difference between a black bear and something that just sounds like one crashing through brush. I'm telling you this because what happened to me wasn't about being unprepared. It was about being in the wrong place at exactly the wrong time, and not understanding that until it was too late to matter. I'd picked a spot in the Ozarks, a few hours off any real road, the kind of place you get to by driving until the pavement turns to gravel, and then the gravel turns to dirt, and then you're just following a rutted track that used to be a logging road 40 years ago. I liked it because nobody else liked it. That was the whole point. 3 days, no phone service, just me and a backpack and enough food to last if I stretched it. The first night was perfect. I set up camp near a creek, cooked some rice and beans over a little stove, watched the stars come out one at a time until the whole sky was just full of them. I remember thinking, this is exactly why I do this. This is the whole reason. Second day, I hiked out further than I meant to. Followed the creek up a ridge because I could hear what sounded like a waterfall, and I wanted to see it. Took me almost 4 hours to get there and back, and by the time I made it to camp, the light was already going orange and low. I was tired in that good way, legs burning, ready to eat something and crash early. That's when I noticed the cooler. I'd left it zipped up tight, latched, sitting right next to my tent. When I got back, it was open. Not torn open, not clawed apart like an animal had gotten into it. Open, like someone had unzipped it, looked inside and zipped it back up wrong, so the top flap was hanging loose on one side. Nothing was missing. That's the part that still gets me. Nothing was taken. My food was untouched. My water filter was right where I left it. Even my knife was sitting on top of my pack in plain sight. Whoever opened that cooler wasn't hungry and wasn't a thief. They just wanted to know what was in it. I told myself it was probably fine. Maybe I hadn't latched it as well as I thought. Maybe the wind had done something weird to the zipper. I've told myself a lot of things that turned out to be wrong, and that was one of them, but at the time it let me sleep, so I took it. I didn't sleep well anyway. I kept waking up to sounds that were probably just the creek, or wind moving through the trees, and every time I'd lie there in the dark convincing myself it was nothing, and eventually I'd drift off again. Morning came and everything looked normal. I made coffee, ate some oatmeal, and decided I'd hike out a shorter loop that day, stay closer to camp. About an hour into it, I came across a fire ring. Not mine. Maybe 200 yards from where I'd set up, tucked behind a stand of pines where you wouldn't see it unless you were looking. The ashes were cold, but they weren't old. A day, maybe two. Next to the fire ring was a boot print in the mud, fresh, deep, like someone had been standing there recently and shifted their weight. Size 12, maybe 13. And next to that print, pressed into the same patch of mud, was a second print. Smaller, a kid's shoe, maybe. I stood there for a long time just looking at those two prints side by side, trying to come up with a version of this that made sense. A family camping rough, off any trail, hiding their fire from view, sneaking into my camp to look through my cooler instead of just walking up and saying hello like any normal person would. I packed up early. I told myself it was because the weather looked like it might turn, but really, I just wanted to be gone. I hiked out faster than I should have, twisted my ankle once on a route I didn't see because I wasn't watching the ground, I was watching the trees. About a mile from the trailhead, my ankle throbbing, I heard a voice call out behind me. A man's voice, calm, almost friendly, asking if I'd seen his daughter. I didn't turn around. I don't fully know why. Something in my body just decided before my brain did, and I kept walking faster now. He called out again, same easy tone, asking if I had any water to spare. I made it to my truck without looking back once. I sat in the driver's seat with the doors locked for a full 10 minutes before my hands stopped shaking enough to start the engine. I never called anyone about it. What would I even report? A man asked me for water. A cooler was unzipped. 2 sets of footprints existed near a fire ring in a national forest where people are allowed to camp. But I think about that little print in the mud more than I want to. And I think about how calm his voice was, how it didn't match the moment at all, how a man whose daughter is actually missing sounds nothing like that. I haven't been back to that spot since, and honestly, I don't think I ever will be. If you've ever gone camping and heard something moving outside your tent that shouldn't be there, you need to hear what happened to me and my brother last October, because we almost didn't make it out of those woods. My brother Danny and I had been planning this trip for months, not some campground with bathrooms and Wi-Fi. Real backcountry, deep in a national forest in eastern Tennessee, the kind of place where your phone shows 0 bars the second you park the truck. We'd hiked about 6 miles in, found a clearing near a creek, and set up camp just as the sun started dipping behind the ridgeline. The first night was perfect. We cooked over the fire, talked about nothing, laughed about stuff from when we were kids. I remember thinking, this is exactly why we do this. Get away from everything. No noise, no people, just us and the woods. The second day, we hiked further out, maybe 2 miles past our camp, following an old trail that wasn't even on the map anymore. That's when we found the cabin. It wasn't marked anywhere. No trail signs pointed to it. It just sat there in a small clearing, half swallowed by overgrown brush, wood gray and rotted from years of weather. The windows were boarded up, but not old boarded, not weathered gray wood like the rest of the place. These boards looked newer, recently put up. Danny wanted to check it out. I told him it felt wrong. He laughed at me, said I'd been watching too many movies. We walked closer anyway. There was a padlock on the door, shiny, new, completely out of place against the rotting wood around it. And nailed next to the door frame was a small piece of plywood with something spray painted on it. Just one word: leave. That should have been enough for us. It should have sent us straight back to camp, packed up and gone home. But Danny, being Danny, he just shrugged it off. Said it was probably some property owner tired of hunters trespassing. We took a few pictures and headed back to our site before dark. That night is when things changed. Around 11, we were sitting by the fire when we heard an engine. Not close, but close enough to notice, somewhere down the old logging road about a half mile from our camp. Out there in the middle of nowhere. Vehicles didn't come down that road. We'd driven it ourselves getting in, and it was barely passable, grown over, rutted out. We didn't think much of it at first. Maybe hunters, maybe another camper. But then, maybe 20 minutes later, we heard it again, closer this time, and then it stopped. Danny killed the fire. We sat there in the dark, not saying anything, just listening. Nothing happened for a long time. No more engine sounds, nothing moving through the brush, no voices. Just silence. We told ourselves it was nothing and eventually crawled into the tent to sleep, though neither of us really did. The next morning, we found the tire tracks. Fresh ones, cutting through the grass about 200 yards from our tent, running parallel to our camp before curving back toward the logging road. Someone had driven close enough to see us, close enough to know exactly where we were pitched, and never approached. That's when Danny finally admitted he was scared too. We made the decision to pack up early and hike out a different way than we came in, avoiding the trail that passed anywhere near that cabin. It added almost 3 extra miles to our route out, but neither of us wanted to go anywhere near that place again. About an hour into our hike, cutting through dense woods off any marked trail, we came across something that still makes my stomach turn thinking about it. A second campsite, abandoned. A tent collapsed and torn, gear scattered everywhere like someone had left in a hurry. A backpack, still zipped, sitting untouched next to a dead fire pit that looked weeks old. We didn't stop to look closer. We didn't touch anything. We just kept walking, faster now, both of us aware of exactly what that scene might mean, but neither of us saying it out loud. We made it back to the truck by early afternoon, and I have never in my life been so relieved to see a paved road. We drove straight to the ranger station about 40 minutes away and reported everything. The cabin, the padlock, the sign, the engine sounds, the tire tracks, and that abandoned campsite. The ranger's face changed the moment we mentioned the cabin's location. He asked us to describe exactly where it was, wrote down everything we said, and told us a search team would be sent out. He also told us carefully that there had been 2 missing persons reports filed from that same general area over the past year. Campers who never made it back to their vehicles. Nobody ever contacted us again with updates. We tried calling twice over the following months and got vague answers both times. Something about an ongoing investigation, nothing they could share with us. To this day, I don't know what was in that cabin, or who drove that vehicle so close to our tent that night, or what happened to whoever left that gear behind at that second campsite. And honestly, I don't want to know. What I do know is this. Danny and I don't camp in unfamiliar backcountry anymore. If we go out now, it's established campgrounds only, places with other people around, cell signal, some kind of safety net. If you're planning a trip into unfamiliar wilderness anytime soon, do yourself a favor. Tell someone exactly where you're going. Bring a way to call for help. And if you ever see a sign telling you to leave, don't ask questions. If these horror stories gave you chills, hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on so you won't miss the next one. Drop a comment below and let me know which story got to you the most. I read every single one. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video.